Coming up, entry is prohibited. Persons involved in extremist activities will no longer be able to enter Kazakhstan. More details next. The industrial park in the capital is gaining momentum. What is produced in the special economic zones of Nur-Sultan? Find out in our news digest. Together, we can protect animals. Dolphinariums, oceanariums, as well as contact zoos will be banned in Kazakhstan. Stay tuned. Persons involved in extremist activities will be banned from entering Kazakhstan. Today, the Mazhilis members took into consideration a bill to that effect. The document was drafted by a group of MPs in order to improve the rules on migration. In addition, pedophiles will also be restricted from entering the country. The amendments also address the regulation of the use of expired documents. This may be possible in the event of an emergency. The industrial park of Nur-Sultan is gaining momentum in terms of productivity. Industrial enterprises of the capital's special economic zone launched products worth 800 billion tenge over 9 months of this year. Last year, they managed to achieve the same figure in monetary terms in 12 months.
Продукция наших производителей экспортируется в различные страны.
The products of our manufacturers are exported to different countries. We provide not only neighboring countries such as Russia, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Azerbaijan. There were also supplies to Moldova last year. Now we have individual deliveries of various goods, which are in demand on international markets to Turkey and Thailand. The capital's industry is developing quite actively.
На международных рынках и идет довольно активное развитие промышленности в столице.
The SEZ territory is open to foreign investors. 17 enterprises with the participation of foreign capital are already operating here. Investors are from a wide variety of countries, including Russia, China, Turkey, Azerbaijan, Poland, Hungary, France, Switzerland, South Africa, and the United States. A total of 56 plants are working on the territory of the capital's industrial park. 5 more new enterprises will be opened by the end of the year.
В целом, в этом году введены в эксплуатацию заводы по производству канцелярских товаров.
In general, stationary production plants were put into operation this year, which manufacture files and folders that we use. Also, polyethylene pipe insulation plants were put into operation, as well as several different enterprises which successfully began working and supplying their products for the needs of the region and for export. To date, our SEZ Astana new city produces nearly 75% of the total production volume of all 13 special economic zones. 2 special economic zones are operating in Nur-Sultan, including Astana New City and Astana Technopolis. The first one was established in 2002 and consists of 2 parts, an administrative and business part and the industrial park. The second one was opened only 3 years ago. It focuses on science and its commercialization. Last month, Kazakhstan produced the maximum volume of oil and condensate in a year and a half, which is nearly 7,660,000 tons. As energy analytics experts reported, last time this figure was exceeded in March 2020, before the beginning of the pandemic. They noted that if a similar level of production maintains, even in November and December, the total volume of the mined oil may reach 85 million tons by the end of this year. At the same time, the volumes of oil production without condensate exceed the OPEC plus quota determined for Kazakhstan. In October, world production increased by 1.4 barrels per day, and even greater growth is expected in November and December. The Asian Development Bank intends to invest $100 billion in the development of green projects in the Central Asian region. During the Regional Unity in Climate Conservation Conference, representatives of the Financial Institute stressed the importance of joint climate action of the Central Asian countries, and also particularly noted Kazakhstan's contribution to the development of green projects and joining efforts in combating the effects of climate change.
Central Asian countries are really crucial, should play a crucial role to solve for this global issue. And ADB itself also elevated its ambition to provide our climate financing with the amount of $100 billion between 2019 to 2030, which means around 8.8 billion per year. It's a lot of money, but should be really efficiently be used to address these very, very global challenges. So I very much would like to cooperate with Central Asian countries, especially Kazakhstan, to achieve our target and achieve the green recovery from our pandemic. So out of this 100 billion, we are planning to invest 66 billion US dollars in mitigation and remaining 34 billion in adaptation.
Kazakhstan once again recorded an increase in the number of COVID-19 infections. 1,058 new confirmed cases were identified in the country in the last 24 hours. Karaganda region accounts for the highest single-day caseload. 135 new coronavirus cases were identified there in the past day. North Kazakhstan region follows with 134 new cases. Nur-Sultan is in the third place with 126 new positive cases of infection. Since the beginning of the pandemic, total COVID-19 cases in Kazakhstan have amounted to just over 959,500. To date, Pavlodar and North Kazakhstan regions continue to remain in a high-risk red zone for the spread of COVID-19. The situation is slightly better in the capital of Kazakhstan, as well as in Akhmola, Karaganda, and Kostanay regions. All other regions in the country are in a safe green zone. Europe again became the epicenter of the coronavirus pandemic. According to the Regional Office for Europe of the World Health Organization, the morbidity and mortality rate from COVID-19 has been rapidly increasing in European countries recently. Experts relate this to the rapid spread of the Delta strain here. However, the vaccination campaign in this region is well underway. According to the latest data, almost 65% of the European population has been immunized.
We are seeing cases and deaths increase again for the fourth week in a row. More than 3.3 million new cases reported to WHO and just under 50,000 new deaths reported in the last 7 days alone. This is the fourth week of increasing cases. It's the fourth week of increasing deaths. And there are countries that have high vaccination coverage and are seeing a significant decline in deaths.
Slovakia is reintroducing strict coronavirus-related measures. According to the new rules, unvaccinated citizens will be prohibited from going to stores that do not sell essential goods, from visiting sport events and checking into hotels. According to the country's health ministry, the number of patients taken to hospitals with COVID-19 reached 2,862. They are out of beds in the hospitals. The authorities are forced to direct the infected throughout the country. More than 81% of the infected were not vaccinated. Only 45% out of 5.5 million people received a vaccine. As you can see, the situation in the country remains tense. Especially difficult situation is observed in hospitals. It is necessary to impose strict restrictions for the next 3 weeks. I hope that people will realize the need to get vaccinated and will immunize as soon as possible. Residents of Washington State, the United States, came out of a devastating flood. Entire towns were underwater. Almost 200,000 houses were cut off power. Rescuers can't keep up evacuating people to temporary shelters. Major highways are blocked. The state's governor declared a state of emergency and urged citizens living in the flood zone to leave their homes. According to the National Weather Service, heavy rains in the region will continue for several more days. The third International Scientific and Practical Conference, Science and Business, took place in Almaty. It was attended by nearly 100 organizations, representatives of which told how to turn ideas into real products. Many scientists began speaking the language of business in recent years. Now they promote their own scientific discoveries.
Институт катализа топлива и, значит, у них разработка.
Sokolsky Institute of Fuel, Catalysis and Electrochemistry has developed filters, which they install on the pipes of oil companies to prevent pollution. As a result, companies started to pay less for emissions because their amount declined. Half of this difference goes to the Sokolsky Institute. They earned $270 million this year.
Разница идет в Институт топливокатализа имени Сокольского. Вот, например, 270 миллионов они заработали в этом году.
Over 5 years alone, Kazakhstan invested 34 billion tenge in the commercialization of science, and it, in turn, gave back 45 million. The next step is to scale up projects and enter the world market. The propaganda of animal cruelty in Kazakhstan will henceforth be prohibited at the legislative level. Today, Mazhilis men in the second reading approved a set of amendments aimed at the responsible pet ownership. According to the member of the lower house, Alexander Milutin, children under the age of 16 will no longer be allowed to walk dogs and cats. There will also be a great pressure on pet owners. This will affect the observance of proper sanitary rules. Local executive bodies will be able to work out the rules for keeping pets. The vaccination and sterilization of stray animals, according to the amendments, will be funded from the state budget. Alexander Milutin also said that when considering the new rules, the proposals of animal rights activists were also taken into account. Thus, the activities of traveling menageries, animal exhibitions, dolphinariums, oceanariums, and contact zoos will soon be banned in the country.
Данная норма будет иметь
This
отлагательный
rule will have a delayed period in order to provide the owners of these organizations with time to conduct procedures for the liquidation and reorganization of their businesses. Also, members of the Mazhilis added clarifying rules that their use of animals for participation in sports events and national sports will be fulfilled in accordance with the law of Kazakhstan on physical culture and sports.
Казахстан о физической культуре и спорте.
A mosque with a 30-year history, the reconstruction of an architectural and art complex built without a single nail is underway in Almaty region. The Jarkent Mosque belongs to the objects of unique architecture and is protected by the government. It was constructed by the Chinese architect Hon Pike at the request of Wali Ahun Yuldasha in the late 19th century and served its purpose for about 30 years. The first restoration of the mosque was conducted from 1975 to 1978. 5 more restoration works were carried out then. Each of them was attended by the master of art painting, Qanish Sidbekov.
Bir ağaç salsa, қасына bir қураған бұта.
All these frescoes, bas-reliefs, bas-reliefs, and arabesques, a stylized plant pattern, are based on the philosophy of life. Look how harmoniously all these numerous panels and the patterned ganj carvings are. They create a kind of illusion of lace and paints. Although they have been faded over time, they didn't lose their luster. I take part in the restoration of the museum for the second time, and I'm still surprised by the skill of the architects of that time.
Оны да қалай істеген адамдар. Сол кездердің арнаны істейтін адамдардың миялары күшті болған.
The colors of the mosque are green, red, yellow, and blue. The murals on the outside have faded over time, but inside they have survived in their original form, the museum staff said.
Бояу бастапқы кезде бұдан да жақсы қанық боялғандықтан әзірге дейін осындай қалыпта сақталып тұр.
The secret of the components of the paint used in the paintings of the mosque still has not been determined. Thanks to the unique selection method of all the components, the paints have not lost their brightness to this day.
Бояу сақталып тұр. Дәл осындай бояу жасай алмаған екен. More than 50 works by contemporary young authors were presented at the Time of Change exhibition. It opened at the Museum of the First President of Kazakhstan in Nur-Sultan. The exhibition surprises both with its genre variety and revel of color, as well as the versatility of materials used by the artists, ranging from the simplest to the most complicated ones. These include oil, paper, fabrics, iron, wire, and other fittings. Each of the showcase works is literally imbued with a spirit of freedom and individuality, the organizers say. According to them, these qualities are particularly characteristic of the young creative generation that grew up in the era of independent Kazakhstan.
Искусство, в целом картина, это и есть летопись.
Art, and precisely paintings, is a real chronicle, a history itself. Through their works, young artists convey the feelings they are experiencing at a particular moment. I mean, they are sensitive about everything that happens in our country. They care about different topics. They manifest themselves through their works. It is their way of telling people what they feel.
Жанр, о чем хотят рассказать зрителю.